Shri Mataji, our most hearty welcome back in Europe, back in Kabbalah. Jai Shri Mataji. Sabine. And of course, we also most lovingly extend our hearty welcome to Sir C.C.P. Srivastava. Welcome. Beloved Shri Mataji, beloved Mother of our world, today we celebrate a very special anniversary. Today we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the opening of Sahasrara Chakra, which without any doubt marks the most important spiritual happening in the evolution of mankind. Today, we look back on 25 years of the activity of the most powerful, the most wonderful, the most loving, and the most compassionate incarnation of the Divine who has ever wandered the face of this earth. Today, Shri Mataji, we look back to the last 25 years of your life, where you have given birth to your child Sahaja Yoga, and where you have dedicated each second, each moment of your life to bring up this child until today, where we celebrate the 25th birthday of Sahaja Yoga. In the past 25 years, at least 5 million human beings must have gotten their Kundalini awakening through you, Shri Mataji. And today, we find approximately 200,000 Sahaja Yogis all over the world who are actively practicing Sahaja Yoga, who are worshipping you every day, who are devoting themselves to the Dharma of Sahaja Yoga, and who are dedicating themselves to the spreading of Sahaja Yoga. We have hundreds of ashrams all over the world. You, Shri Mataji, have created thousands of families. You have given the chance for thousands of high souls wanting to incarnate again and participate in this tremendous happening, in this tremendous awakening of mankind. We have schools, many schools all over the world. And in fact, Shri Mataji, you have created a completely new human race, a completely new kind of human beings who have, through you, Shri Mataji, access to subtle realms of reality which are totally unknown to the rest of the world. All these Sahaja Yogis, they live in conscious connection, in conscious bondage with divinity. And they experience every day the Parama Chaitanya, the living actual existence of the Holy Ghost, of the Adi Shakti. And they experience their own nature, which is divine. This is the greatest achievement which has ever been achieved by any of the incarnations, by any of the prophets, by any of the saints. And it really marks the coronation of the spiritual evolution of mankind. So, at this moment, on this very important occasion, we thank you, Shri Mataji, in the name of all the prophets, of all the saints, of all the seers, of everybody who has been working for the emancipation of mankind since the existence of mankind, and whose dream and whose vision has now finally come true at the very entrance of the golden age to come, at the very entrance of the Satya Yuga, which is heralded through your advent, Shri Mataji, and which will be built on the foundation of these Sahaja Yogis who you have created until today. Shri Mataji, as a symbol of our total devotion to you, as a symbol of our complete awareness who you are, today we would like to surrender to you the world, which is represented by all those flags. And not only do we want to surrender and offer to your feet, to your holy lotus feet, the world, but also all those national flags, they represent all our wrong identifications. They represent all the differences between human beings. They, they represent the cause and the reason why human beings have been fighting and quarreling in the last, since we can see back, we can look back into history. Today also is another very important day. It is not only the 25th anniversary of the opening of Sahasrara Chakra, but it is also the 50th anniversary of the ending of the Second World War. So both these anniversaries fall together, and it is the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the ending of the most terrible thing which has ever happened on this planet, and it is the 25th anniversary of the most beautiful thing which has ever happened on this planet. So Shrimataji, as the Sahasrara is symbolizing the dimension of integration, the dimension of the absolute, and the dimension of oneness, we now surrender all the differences between human beings, all the wrong identification, and we ask that all of these things get dissolved in the oneness of Sahaja Yoga, that they get dissolved in the recognition of you, Shrimataji Nirmala Devi. Thank you very much. We salute you, Shrimataji. We congratulate you, we thank you, and we are looking forward for the next 25 years with you, Shrimataji. Thank you. Okay, put your flag at her feet and bow down. Put your flag at her feet. We sing the three mantras now while they offer the flags to Shrimataji. Greece, Shrimataji. What is your country? Turkey, Shrimataji. Okay, make fast. Bulgaria, Shrimataji. Ukraine. Hungary. Germany. Holland. Poland. Algeria. Uruguay. Finland. Denmark. Japan. United Kingdom. Portugal. Czechoslovakia. Canada. Romania. Israel. Australia. Malaysia. Italy. Italia. Italia. Christianity. The symbol of Christianity. Colombia. Shrimataji, please accept this offering as a symbol for our desire for a future to come without any different races, no more different religions, no more different castes, no more borders, no more nations, but a world one and unified by Sahasrara Yoga. Finding itself at your lotus feet. Jai Shri Mataji.
Unsere Mutter. Mütter sind wie ein Fels in der Brandung. Mütter sind wie der Duft eines Blumengartens. Mütter sind wie ein Baum zum Anlehnen, der dir Schatten spendet und dich mit seinen Früchten nährt. Du, Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi, du bist die Mutter aller Mütter. Du bist alles für uns. Immer wieder verneigen wir uns vor dir in Demut und Dankbarkeit.
To our mother. Mothers are like a rock in the sea. Mothers are like a fragrance of a flower garden.
Mothers are like a tree to lean against, which gives you shadow and fruits to eat.
You, Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi, you are the mother of all mothers. You are everything for us.
We humbly and gratefully bow to you, again and again.
So can the German choir singers please come on the stage? And the children are just getting ready for their theatre play. Chop chop. first song is about the divine powers manifesting here on earth in human beings. And a rough translation, and the song was composed by Johann Sebastian Bach. I nearly said something else there. And a loose translation of the song is, "Eternity, you are the voice of thunder." And I think they've changed the words a little bit, Mother, in praise of you, so I hope you forgive them for the difference. Hi everybody. The next song is from America. It's a traditional gospel song which is sung in all the valleys in Germany. And the rough translation, I'm not sure if they're going to sing it in English or German, is we're going to go tell it on the mountain. Our mother has come, I think.
Okay, this is an old American spiritual. Everybody knows it. It's called Go Tell It on the Mountains. And of course we have transformed the text a little bit. So now we sing Go Tell It on the Mountains. Our mother now is here, and we sing about the blessings that are available for all people on this earth.
me and then put it on the thing. Yeah? But I have to hold your hand. The Fairy and the Rose. Once upon a time, there lived in a wood a fairy. Each day she would sit upon her mushroom and sew for herself a new dress of rose petal silk. She was a very selfish little fairy. One day, as she sat sewing and dreaming of her new collection of dresses, a strange sound came into her ears. Zzz, it buzzed, zzz, zzz, and around her head, in circular movements, buzzed a large, hairy fly. Ah, she cried, get away from me. And she waved her thin white arms at the fly. Zzz, buzzed the fly. I've been watching you for a long time, and you really do have a beautiful collection of dresses. He stopped his buzzing and settled himself down onto a leaf next to the fairy's head. The fairy glared at the fly and sang in her uppity voice, "Why, you a fly, what right do you have to admire me? I am a fairy, and you are nothing but an insect. Get away from me before I shout to that spider over there to eat you up." "You like to sit all day and sew your dresses, don't you?" grinned the fly. And the fairy stared at the fly and began to get angrier and angrier. "But you haven't seen what I have seen. And if you had, you would put down your sewing right away and follow me." The fairy was still glaring at the fly when a slight twitch started to develop upon her face, and she became more and more curious. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Your dresses are very pretty, and the silk is the best rose petal silk in all the wood. But," he yawned, and turning his back, examining his fingernails, "I have seen a rose so rare and so precious that one touch of its leaves would give you all the power in the world." The fairy's face grew pinker by the minute. "This rose has never been seen by living eyes except mine, and its beauty you cannot imagine. And well, if you so desire, I can take you to this rose." Now the fairy's eyes grew wider and wider as she fancied she saw reflected in the fly's eyes the most beautiful rose, more beautiful than the rainbow. A strange sensation swept through her body, and she floated above her mushroom. "Why are you telling me this?" asked the fairy, and the fly laughed to himself. Because he knew that she was the most selfish little fairy in the whole wood, and that she would be the one to give him what he so desired. So he continued, "Because," his black eyes turned blacker and blacker, "because," he repeated, "I would like something from you." He stopped and stared long into her eyes. "I would like your magic." "Ah!" cried the fairy, turning deathly pale. "No, not that. Anything but my magic." And she started to cry selfish tears, because deep inside she really did want the rose. The fly looked on emotionless. "What is your magic to you when you can own the most beautiful thing on earth, a heavenly rose?" Now the fly, who after all was just a fly, knew how to worm his way into the fairy's heart. Beauty meant nothing to him, for he was a fly who all this time had been thinking up ways to get his hand on the fairy's magic, and now he had his chance. He was just as good as those uppity fairies and silly elves, and he wasn't so ugly in his black furry jacket and furry fat legs, all 6 of them. I mean, those fairies had only 2. And what with his beautiful black telescope eyes, he could see not only in front of him, but to the side and behind without a turn of his handsome head. No, sir, he did not think himself bad at all, the only difference between him and those fairies being their fairy magic, and how they used it. It was a crime to see them sprinkling it all over the wood and in the streams and on the flowers. I mean, who needs singing rivers and flowers all over the place anyway? If I had my way, he thought, I would cover everything with the finest, blackest mud you have ever seen. Oh, how wonderful it would be. And the fairies, yes, the fairies would be my slaves. And that's how I would use the fairy magic if I could only get my hands on it. The fairy was growing more dissatisfied, and each word the fly spoke, Is my magic so important when I could own something so much greater, she thought. The fairy looked down at the dress that she was sewing. It now looked so plain and dull, she threw it aside. All right, she said to the fly, I will give you my magic, if you will take me to the rose. The fly put his head to one side and looked at the fairy. You won't regret it, he said, and then buzzed off into the night. Far, far away beyond the highest mountain, God looked down upon his beloved earth. A small tear fell from his eye as he listened to the fairy and the fly. As the night grew darker, the whole wood became alive with lights and lanterns. Singing filled the air as the fairy folk made their way back home from their day's work. Now the wood was clean again, and the rivers sang. Wait till they stop. Oh, they left. Okay. The fairies waved to the selfish fairy. When will you come down from your ivory mushroom, they teased her playfully. When will you come and do the work that you were born to do? This is my work, she shouted angrily, holding up the new dress she had just finished sewing, and threw it aside. I'll show them, she muttered to herself. Once more the night grew still, but the fairy could not sleep. She could only think about the rose and tossed and turned the whole night through. As the first rays of morning began to fall, the fairy folk were already up and working in the wood. Their songs echoed and the birds twittered with joy as the earth gave birth to another day. Loud rappings at the door suddenly woke the fairy from her troubled sleep. Are you ready? Buzzed the fly. I am ready, answered the fairy, making sure she was not seen by anybody. She left the safety of her woodland house and ventured out into the unknown with the fly. Where are we going? Asked the fairy. To the center of the world, replied the fly. And as the fairy and the fly ventured deeper and deeper into the wood, it was as though night was once again falling down around them. The trees became so thick, and it became more and more difficult for them to continue. They had already come such a long way. Oh, cried the fairy, I've torn my beautiful dress. And she sat down and cried. I can't go on, it's too dangerous, and I fear we will soon be lost. I want to go home, back to my fairy folk. The fairy was now beginning to realize her folly, and already she was regretting what she had done. But the fly just laughed, and was beginning to get tired of the fairy. Silly fairy, did you really believe the story about the rose? It was just a trick to lead you into the darkness, so I could steal away your magic. There is no rose. And with that, he flew at the fairy and snatched away her magic wand. Oh, she cried, you horrible creature, you are going to leave me here to die. If only I hadn't listened to you and your poisonous words, this never would have happened. I take it all back. I don't want anything. I don't want the rose. I just want to be back with my friends, safe in the wood, doing my work. And she cried and cried and cried. And the fly stared and stared and stared. The lights go down. Everyone can close their eyes. Look, he stammered in disbelief. Look! And the fairy looked to where his finger was pointing, and there she saw in wonderment and surprise the rose. Not just a rose, but a rose with petals tipped with transparent flecks of gold and silver, holding light and giving light. and through its petals soft colors ran like a rainbow, dripping living drops of color onto the ground beneath. And its stem was golden, and no man could ever break that stem. And from its head of 1,000 petals gentle music sang, and everything around the rose shined and was glad. And as the fairy gazed at the beauty of the rose, tears of joy gently streamed down her cheeks. "Why was I not warned of your beauty?" she whispered. "No one can ever steal from you a single petal, for within each petal is life unto life, and in your colors run the hearts of men, and in your light is God." And the fairy became very still. "Oh, you weak fool," buzzed the fly madly around and around. "What is the use of eyes if this is all you see? You could rule the whole wood, but because of this worthless beauty you throw it aside." And the fly flew like a rocket through the wood, waving the wand madly at everything. But nothing happened. A gentle breeze softly blew through the gathering, and the fairy could hear the faint tinkling of small fairy bells. He cannot use your magic," she told the fairy. "You were given this magic for a reason, and it belongs to you alone. No one can take it away from you." And the fairy felt ashamed of her vanity and selfishness and could not look at the rose. "Your work," continued the rose, "is for this precious wood, to keep the balance of nature and restore harmony wherever necessary. Yours is the greatest work, and without fairies like you, this wood would die." The rose beckoned the fairy towards her. "Come, my child, take this." And from the rose a thorn fell to the ground. The fairy picked up the thorn and saw that it had transformed into a wand. And the fairy danced with joy before the rose, and in the dew she saw her own reflection smiling back, and in her heart was the same beautiful rose, and upon her head was 1,000-petaled lotus that sang the same song of the rose. And then it was time for the fairy to take her leave and go back to the fairy folk she now so longed to see. And as the fairy left the rose, heaven opened out within her and opened up her fairy wings, and she flew higher and higher than she had ever flown before.